This is Richard R. Ramirez, better known as Charo, and you're watching Belizean Legends.
This is Belizean Legends, and I'm Bilal Morris. And today in this studio, in this legendary studio where a lot of the greats meet, is the one and only Richard Ramirez. They used to call him Charro, an outstanding Belizean jockey from the 1960s and 70s. Richard Ramirez trained, and I also think he rode the great horse, the legendary horse Godfather, at one time. But he trained that horse and had trained many of the top class Belizean jockeys. This story came about while doing a story in Finley Bishop and his work in New Jersey as a horse trainer. The legendary Finley Bishop and Richard Ramirez was the man that said, hey, you only know half the story about Belizean horse racing. Let me tell you about the rest of the story. But Richard Ramirez also come to us here as also a legendary Belizean musician that was able to play with the dynamic and great Bill, Bilal, and Pete Matthews. My brother Richard Ramirez, with that I want to say welcome, man, to the Belizean Legends.
The pleasure is mine. Pleasure is mine, and thanks.
You know, my brother, we are not always graced with the humility of a brother like you, because you have been visiting the Belizean Legends page for quite a while, just as a spectator, as an audience. But I did not know until Kenny Stuart said to me when we did that piece on horse racing, you need to talk to the one and only Charro. You know, Richard Ramirez, man, I want to just start off there because Belizean horse racing, man, was a pastime. That was a Belizean pastime. Like how baseball for the Americans are a pastime, horse racing. I used to remember sitting down with my grandfather and he used to tell me, Pop, that horse there, Lady Alice, we're just hearing it. He's not seeing it, but he's just from what he's hearing. Bernardo Gay announcing, the man knew so much about horses, right?
Yes.
Coming from the south. And he used to tell me, he said, that is a good horse. One day I want you to take me to see that horse run. With that, Richard Ramirez, man, talk about how your horse racing career started as a jockey in Belize. Talk about that.
Well, first of all, Bilal, it's just an honor to be here with you. And I want to thank you and commend you for the wonderful work that you're doing.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you for the platform that you have provided for some of us so that our voices could be heard and the stories told.
Yes, sir.
Horse racing in Belize has always been, it's a love. It's a love that the people have for racing. There was no money in the sport. We did it because we loved it. In other words, it was in the DNA.
Yeah.
You had to love it to be a part of it.
Yes.
And I just want to shout out to all of the old timers. Some have gone on, some are still with us. And you know, somebody's name we're going to leave out. But let them not take that personal.
Yes.
Because we want to thank everybody who has been a part of racing down through the years in Belize. And even those who have kept it alive up to this time, we want to thank them for the wonderful job that they have done. Racing for me came because my father, Jose Ramirez, or Joe Ramirez, as we know him as Daddy Joe, and Belizeans know him as Boss Joe.
Hey.
He was a horse owner. He had horses. He had imported horses from Jamaica. And so when the time I knew myself, we had horses in our stables where we lived. And from a child, when the horses would come back from the track, after working out, they would put me on the horse, and that's how I started.
Young boy at the time.
As a kid. Before I knew to walk, I was on the back of a horse. So I think that tells the whole story.
Yes, yes.
And that's where the love of it came from.
And
then my father, when I was about 7 years old, I remember he used to wake me up at 4 in the morning, and then I would get ready. He would go down in the stable and get the horse prepared, saddle it and everything, and then come and get me, and we would go, him on his bicycle, and I on the horse, and we would go just for miles galloping, and he was teaching me how to sit, how to position myself, how to hold the reins, and how to do everything. And so that's where it came from. The love of horses came from that. And eventually, I think when I got about 8 years old, he thought that I was ready, and he invited, because he had friends. I mean, he was well known in the community. I think he invited a lot of people just to come and see me. Breeze this horse, this thoroughbred horse, an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old, and that's where he came from. And from there, you know, the rest.
You know what who that horse was? The name.
The mare was a mare by the name of Coronation Lady.
Coronation Lady.
Coronation Lady. That was one of the. She had retired, but he brought her back from the farm so that I could learn. Yeah. So I learned in an old retired mare, and that's where it all started. And from there, from Coronation Lady, well, on to the races. Onto the races, but that was before '61 hurricane. That's when we had the old home park.
I was born in the '61 hurricane, right in the midst of it. So we are going here, Belizean. I just want to say this is Belizean Legends, and we are going back before 1961 hurricane. You just heard Richard Ramirez bringing us a historical perspective about Belizean horse racing, how the horses got into Belize. Most of those horses were imported out of Jamaica.
Out of Jamaica at the time, the thoroughbreds came from Jamaica. Naturally, you had the local horses that they crossed, the mares that would cross with the imported stallions from Jamaica, and that's how we got the local horses. Yeah, but you know, way before my time, we heard the old timers tell us about the old stories from the barracks days. And they would call horses like Bring the Money and Black Amber and Sage Narcos. And they even had a horse there, Bilal, that this is a little humor in between. I think they called him, the name of the horse was Disaster. Disaster roamed the streets of Belize. And then the morning of the race, they would just go get him and clean him up.
Wow, so the horse would be just running around.
He was roaming anywhere and fighting for his own in the morning of the race. There's a little humor in between, but it's true. They said it was true. They told us. And the morning of the race, they would clean him up.
And the bad boy of the track.
And win, go out there and win. And after the race, they let him go again.
Let him go. He just roams the streets.
But this is, as I say, it's the love of it. You know, when people
for the sport.
People had to love it to do it because we lived at the tracks from 4 in the morning.
The race you moved up into after that young age of being placed on a horse by your father, being a horse importer and owner. Those were the people who were the pioneers in creating this horse race industry that we had. A lot of people don't know where it came from. Painfully came developed by people like your dad, Joe Ramirez, man.
And Ben Stuart.
And Ben Stuart.
Gilbert Canton.
Say those names.
Ben Stuart, Gilbert Canton.
Say those names, man.
The Catousas, the Lightburns.
Yes.
And these are the people that were instrumental.
In developing that horse racing.
In the racing, that's right. That's right. You had people in the Cayo district, which was at that time Cayo. You had the Galveses, the Bedrans, Eduardo Juan.
Yes, I used to hear those names.
And then you had the great Johnny Robinson Sr. out from the Central Farm area.
Central Farm.
Yes, these are. Then up north, Orange Walk, you had the late Charles Brown.
Wow.
His son Clarence Brown, who had the famous filly Baby Carrie, who I rode to many victories. Baby Carrie, and then the Lightburns. And you had the Tillets. Mr. Edgar Tillett, he had the great Welcome Sir.
Welcome Sir.
A colt out of Thank You Sir. Wow. And who won many races too. And so
and then forget that name, Welcome Sir.
Welcome Sir. It came from Thank You Sir.
Yes,
who was a brother with the great Sir Jude.
Oh, that was the brother of Sir Jude.
Sir Jude.
My horse right there.
And Lady Alice. They all came out of Thank You Sir. Who Santiago Castillo brought in.
Stuart wrote that thing. He wrote that. I was like, how could that be? So they all, Jude and Lady Alice came from out of Welcome Sir.
Thank You Sir.
Thank You Sir.
Thank You Sir.
Yes.
Jude's dam was a horse by the name of Rainbow that was owned by Santiago Castillo. And then out of Rainbow and Christopher Robin from the Canton came Lady Raffia, and then out of Raffia came Sir Jude. Let me correct that.
Talk about the horse, the Godfather, because that's where I wanted to go next. I remember you mentioned the first person I heard that mentioned that name of that horse, the Godfather, was you.
The Godfather was sired by Tamashanta, who was owned by Gilbert Canton Sr. And Jr. And you know Roy Canton had a farm up at the Northern Highway at 22 miles. So Tamashanta and a mare by the name of Mary Beth produced Godfather. But before Godfather, you had Spellbreaker. They were full brothers.
Wow.
And before Spellbreaker, you had Silk Stockings, which was owned by Robert Espot, Bobby Espot from the Cayo district. Silk Stockings ended up running in Guatemala and winning races over in Guatemala.
Wow.
That's how good he was.
Listen to that.
That's how good he was. But Godfather, I don't want to be a little bit prejudiced, but I think Godfather was the best out of all of them. I think he was one of the best local horses
from you, man.
that we ever had.
Top Belizean jockeys.
Well, I was just a trainer.
Yeah.
Q Leslie was the rider.
Today that comes from you. That the Godfather was one of the best horses Belize had ever seen.
Because the last race I participated in at Orange Walk was going a mile against Lightburn's imported horses. Bob Lightburn brought a horse into Belize by the name of Ribbert's Lark.
Yes.
A wonderful mare. Ribbert's Lark came from the great sire Ribot, R-I-B-O-T, who was an undefeated Italian runner. Man. 16 for 16.
Check it out.
And after races, he was one of the greatest sires in the world. And so Ribbert's Lark came from Ribot. So she was a runner. But the Godfather beat her.
The Godfather beat her?
Going wire to wire. In Orange Walk, I think we ran the fastest mile for any local horse ever did at that time. And well, as I say,
have you rode? Did you get a chance to ride the Godfather?
No, I was the trainer. I was too heavy then. Yeah,
he was too heavy then.
Q was the rider. He was the regular rider.
You trained the horse.
But I was a trainer.
Richard Ramirez, what goes in when you train a horse?
First is love.
Yeah.
But you have to know the horse because every horse is different. No two horses are the same.
Yeah.
So you can't train any two horses the same way. But you got to start out with a foundation.
Yeah.
Putting a foundation and getting them muscled up and slow. From the slow you go a little faster until you get them. And the thing in Belize with the training is it was a different technique that here in the States, you know, they have so many races. So some of the trainers, they run their horses into condition.
Yeah.
In other words, if they got a big race that they're pointing towards, they will run them 2 or 3 times before that.
Yeah.
Belize, we didn't have that. Belize, the races were so far apart that if the race was 4 months away, you had to train and get your horse ready for that 4 months. So it's a different technique. You had to know what you were doing. But it worked out, you know.
You all master that whole style, though, in terms of that big gap. When you all know how to prepare that horse.
You had to know how to condition him to get him ready for that exact day. You want him ready because you want the best out of him.
Yeah. I might have been seeing you, Richard Ramirez, working on horses at National Sale, but I didn't know who you were at the time.
But as Ashley and Bishop and Q, they came way after.
They came way after
the days that I rode is
yes.
myself, the great Nick Hernandez.
Nick Hernandez, I knew that man personally, man.
He was a quiet
spirit.
spirit.
A legend indeed.
But he was a really wonderful person.
Yes, man. He won some good races too in his time.
He won everything, yeah. He mostly rode for the Canton stables.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you had so you had Nick and myself. You had Udell. You had a Billy. You had Bobby Stevenson.
Yeah.
You had Maggie from the John King stables.
Wow.
And so that was during my time. So
it's so blessing to hear you call the names of those outstanding Belizean jockeys, because we want to remember those jockeys as legendary Belizean jockeys in that great time of horse racing. And I would have never heard those names until you call them. You know, we would have never known. We are like students to these things. We were babies to that time. And so, man, I'm so gracious that you were able to come on here and mention those names. And the great trainer of the Godfather, which became, as Richard Ramirez says, one of the best horses. Why do you think that he was one of the best horses throughout the whole period of Belizean horse racing?
Well, I'd say local, because you had a lot of imported horses. But I think because of the time.
Yes.
The time that he ran, it moved.
He came from out of the 60s right into the 70s, right, Ramirez, the Godfather?
He was in the early 70s.
The early 70s?
The 70s. I think he was foaling about 72.
I remember hearing about
73, 74. At 74, he was a 3-year-old.
He was probably one of my grandfather's favorite too, the Godfather. Yeah.
He came from the Canton barn, from the stables,
And when you're training a horse, you have to train the jockey too. You said Q rode the Godfather, right? So you had to train Q too.
Q's father was I think he was a manager at Hofius.
Okay.
And I remember clearly, if not correct, Q could correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember the day that his father brought him to me at the track, and he said, "Richard, would you take care of my son and teach him?"
Yes.
And he was just a little guy, and I remember putting him up on the horse and walking. I had a little twitch in my hands along with him, and every time he did something that was wrong, I would kind of remind him, you know, how your hands go, how you posture with your legs, how you got to sit.
That's a technique.
Because the technique you don't want to go against the horse, you want to go with him. So you don't want to obstruct him when he's running, you want to just flow with him, you know.
You can't be tensed up there.
No, the easier
you're more relaxed.
The more relaxed you're, the better it is for him. You know, become one with him.
He's feeling you.
Yeah, you have to be as one with him. Yeah, you have to connect with him.
Technique that, man.
And so that's how he came up, and he won a lot of races. He was a great rider. And I know he came out here he was on the East Coast, and then he came to the West Coast working.
Well, for the sake of our viewers, Mr. Ramirez, Q is what is his real name?
Fred Leslie.
Fred Leslie. For those Belizeans who remember Fred Leslie, called name, aka Q.
Sir Q. We call him Sir Q.
Sir Q.
Yeah.
You rode the Godfather to many victories, no?
Yes. Most of the victories, the mile that we won in beating River Slark and Orange Walk, King Jr. John King Jr. rode him then. We gave him a ride. I said, I want you to feel something here.
Yeah.
Because we're all family, you know, we're all together. So I told Q, give him a shot. Let him feel what this dude is doing here.
Yeah.
And he went wide away. He couldn't pull him up because after the race, Godfather went another time around the track. Because he was ready that day. Yeah, but it was good, you know. So
and notice that the horses used to, not only the race is not was going on only at National Stadium, but you had Boom,
right? We had the Castleton track.
Because you mentioned to me off the record that you were able to beat Lady Alice in Boom Orange Walk. Though that horse was dominating National Stadium races, you were talking about that, Richard Ramirez.
Well, yeah, the Lady Alice belonged to Mr. Mazza. Yeah. And when she started out, she had ran a few races, then she had some knee problem. So I want to give credit where credit was due. So she was hurt, and it was the same stunner you all call stunner. His name is Goldburn Milton.
Goldburn Milton was stunner. Listen to that.
That's a great rider, Sir Jude.
Yeah, that's right.
But he was a good trainer. He was a great trainer.
Yeah.
So they took Lady Alice, Goldburn, and my compadre Basilio Stuart.
Basilio Stuart,
that's my compadre. They took Lady Alice, and from my father had a library about horses. So out of that library we learned a lot of things. How to deal with injuries and ailments.
Yes, you guys read up.
And I shared that information with I always shared it with all my friends. So through that, Goldburn learned, and they took that Lady Alice and they fixed that knee.
Nurtured that.
They took months, and they got her back to the track. And when they got her back to the track, she was as sound as ever.
No animal doctor at the time there to help her out. They don't have to just learn that right there from scratch.
And so they brought her back, and she won her first race out. And then right after that, I think there was a falling out with the owners and the trainers. So you know, things happen.
Yes.
But she was a great filly.
I think it was you that mentioned in our blog we had on Belizean Legends that she died through our training with Finley Bishop.
I had left the country already, but I heard after a workout she fell right on the collapse on the track.
And that's why one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Rich, in that, can you work a horse out to the point where you have to know if that horse you could endanger that horse, the horse could die while you're training?
Well, you should know the limitations.
You should know your limitations.
But it could still happen, because they just had a few months ago one of the top runners here up in Del Mar.
Yes.
With one of the riders that won the Triple Crown and American Pharaoh. The horse collapsed right on the track to her died.
It just could happen, right?
Yeah, it could happen.
Mean that the jockey the trainer may have pushed the horse too far.
It happens.
Yeah, when they mentioned that, I thought about Lady Alice, man, because that was my grandfather's most favorite horse. And I remember they buried her right there at the National Stadium. Yeah.
But anyway, so let's come to the meeting with Lady Alice and Misty.
Misty, yes.
Misty was owned by the Lindo stables.
Yeah.
But Misty was a very delicate filly.
Okay.
In other words, you had to handle her with gloves. She was very delicate. So Mr. Canton Jr., Gilly Jr., his son is the one that's running the races now in Belizean charge.
Yes.
Kudos to him for the great work he's doing. But his dad, we had a good relationship, and he said, Charo, you know, let's get Misty, because I think we could do something with this filly. I said, go ahead, Mr. Canton, get him, I'll help you. And so we were good friends with the Lindos, and we got Misty from the Lindo Stable.
Lindo's had a rider to a jockey. What's his name? I'd seen
Johnny,
Johnny
Lindo.
Lindo. I didn't even know it was Johnny Lindo. You telling me about horse racing? I'm talking about football.
I had a little something to do with Johnny. I think I put him up on his first race. Yeah, but nevertheless, so we got Misty, and we took our time with her, and we learned her, and what she didn't like and what she liked, and we got her into shape. And we won a few races, but the biggest race we won was down at Boom.
Yeah.
When they went head to head with Lady Alice, Misty and Lady Alice,
wow.
the two flying fillies.
Yeah.
And we had two races. We had a 5/8 and then we had a mile.
Yeah.
In those days, some of the horses we ran two races one day.
The same day.
Because see, the races were so far in between that we were able to do that.
Yes.
So in a five furlong, Misty, we won wire to wire.
Wow.
Lady Alice never saw which so we smoked her that day.
Was neck to neck?
No, I say
a big gap.
Well, a few lengths.
Wow.
A few lengths.
Wow.
She was ready, but then they went back a few hours later to run the mile, and as it would happen, the starting gate that had happened, Misty's gate didn't open. So Lady Alice had took off.
Yeah, he got a big jump over Misty.
When Mrs. Gate opened, and Ashley James, the competitor, Ashley was going, and I jumped down, pull her up. I mean, you can't, they were almost evenly matched. So
was it Finley on
Lady Alice? Yeah. So Lady Alice won. She won the mile, but we pulled up because our gate malfunctioned. We didn't come out. Yeah. So
shouldn't
that's
that be
what
like disqualified in terms of voiding that race and then start it all over?
Well, man, I don't know what happened after that because the betting that was going on. So that was chaotic. That was a riot afterwards.
Couldn't do that.
But the stewards handled it because you have the stewards at the track. So the stewards rule that malfunction of the gate. So we have to put that out. But that's how that went down. But those were beautiful times, man.
Misty, man, that was an awesome horse.
Yeah.
I remember that horse very well, Misty. Yeah.
She was beautiful, and so we. The beauty of it, so we used to sleep at the track the night before the race.
Yes.
All the trainers, everybody.
There was a whole culture at that track,
everybody
man.
Sleeping there because the competition was so that tight.
Yeah.
We slept there with the horses, so nobody could harm your horse. So that's what they say. That you got to be careful because they might throw something.
Yeah, indeed.
So we slept, and what we did, we would have a cookout that night. They would cook the cold soup all night. The big lard pan where you have.
Yeah, man.
The cold soup and the lard pan, and even though we were fierce competitors, we ate from the same lard pan.
Man, some bread and things.
And I wish we would go back to those days, where we could have differences of opinion and differences of belief, but we could still know that we're still family.
Man, you agree, disagree, but you're not
and those are the days we need to go back to.
Yes, my brother. Indeed.
Yes.
Well, there was a culture at that track, indeed, Ramirez, because when I did get a little glimpse of it was through a good high school friend of mine from St. Michael's. His father owned a horse named Black Beauty, Mr. Middleton, and he used to have to go there to clean the horse, and I used to go with him. Because I was so fascinated with horses, right? And you used to see Beavis over there, and you see him take the horses around the track. And then you see somebody, training, and you see people cleaning the stables. It was so organized, it looked like, was it?
Yes, it was.
It was an organized thing. Everybody had a job to do. Everybody was playing a role, and it was that people knew what they were doing there.
And every role was important.
Every role was important.
Even down to the guy that cut the grass for you.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have no hay in those days where you say, So the guy that cut the grass, he had to go and find an area where you could get the grass every day.
That was a special kind of grass that they
sparrow grass and the Bahama grass, and that's the grass that we use for training. Sometimes you would get to your spot where you figure, well, I'm gonna cut here today. And if you get there, somebody beat you already to it.
You learn all those things.
You have to, because that's what it takes. It takes all that to make it work.
You were not only a jockey, but you knew how to care for the horse.
That's what it did. That's the most important thing.
Being a trainer also.
It's the most important thing. And Brother Bilal, regardless if you have a secretariat in your barn or you have a cheap horse, they all take the same thing, the same care.
That was an awesome horse against Secretariat, man.
Yeah, he's a triple crown.
We had a Belizean Secretariat, right? I know you had the great the Kentucky Derby secretariat, right?
But he won the
Triple Crown. The Triple Crown.
Oh,
Yeah. I was watching a YouTube version with secretariat last night, man. Getting ready for your interview. I was like, man, I was just watching a lot of derbies, you know. And secretariat, that horse that used to blow the horses by far, man.
It was in '72. He won the Belmont Stakes by 31 lengths. But nevertheless, we had our secretariat in our days too, so that's
it's very much. Yeah. You know, the Ramirez, man, you wearing two hats here today. I want to go now to music, man, because a lot of people don't really know. And I'm going to say this before I say this. Let me say this is Belizean Legends, and I'm Bilal Morris, and we're speaking with the legendary Charo, Richard Ramirez, one of the baddest Belizean jockeys of all times, right? We could talk about the Philly Bishops, the Ashley James, the Stammer, and all of the others, right? But this dude here was bad, right? This was a bad dude right here. And we are so happy and gracious to have Richard Ramirez find time out of his busy schedule. Also a pastor of a church, so big up to Richard Ramirez. But my brother, we want to say to also, you are a bassist, man, that knew the legendary Belize. You played with a lot of bands, we were talking off the record when you came.
Yes,
and talk about your music career too, man, because the jockey that was also a musician.
Well, I came from a musical family because my mother, the late Lydia de la Fuente Ramirez, was my mother. She had two programs on the old Radio Belize station. She had the Almas de Casa, which was a station that she gave recipes to the housewives, but she also sang her own songs.
Played guitar.
Played guitar from she was 5 years old. She was playing the guitar. And then she had a Rincon Infantilis, a children's program. It was very famous. All the kids in the whole country knew her.
Because she came to them in her own rights, right?
And so from that came the love of music, where we learned. She taught
music in your home.
She taught us the guitar from very early. So we didn't have much, but we had love and we had music. So we entertain ourselves every day with music, and that's where the music came from.
The horse racing from your father and the music from your mother.
Yeah, that's you put it right. That's how it did. That's where it came from.
Yes, man.
That's where it came from.
Rich home in terms of the wealth of skills, in terms of those two things. Very rich home. Very rich home. You maybe not rich in money, but you were rich with those sorts of things, like you said, Ramirez. You would wish those times would come back, where we appreciated the wealth in terms of what we had in those small things there that was so big.
That's right.
You know, and the music you talk about, man. Talk about your friendship with the legendary Bill
and Pete Matthews.
And Pete Matthews.
Leave Pete out. Well,
yes, man. You said that right, bro.
We started our little group Los Ecos in, I think it's around 67, 68.
Yes.
And myself, my brother Alfonso, my brother from the northern area, Hugo Vasquez, a great guitar player, one of Belize's best. Shout out to Hugo.
Yeah. And Alfonso, he's going to be watching this.
Yeah, I mentioned his name, Tony Acosta.
Tony Acosta.
The great Acosta family.
Jesus and Tony.
Jesus, the horn, one of the best horn players of our country. We're blessed to have him. And Manuel, don't forget the older brother on the drums.
Manuel on the drums.
And don't forget the father, Chuchin, the great Chuchin.
Manuel was a drummer.
Manuel was a drummer.
Tony was
a drummer too.
Was a drummer too.
But then I heard he picked up the bass later on.
What Fuller said, boy, said me, and I think it was Tony. He said, well, that was my boy. He said, Tony and me. He said, yeah. He said, man, if I would say who would be one of the best drummers during my time, he said it was him. So
that's where we started. I was over at their father's house, Mr. Chuchin, learning music.
Yeah, Chuchin, again, Belizean, that is a big name. Chuchin Acosta.
Yes, let's never forget him.
If that's the father, right?
That's the father, let's never forget him.
The Sus and all the, from the professionals, Chuchin Acosta.
So that's where it started from. So that's where we formed the group Los Ecos.
Los Ecos.
And we had no instruments.
Yeah.
So we would travel with Los Belizeños, one of the top bands at that time. Pops Acosta, the great band leader, Pops Acosta.
Yeah.
And we had an opportunity when they would go on break that we would play during the sets, and then we would go over to the canal side over in Havana, That's Yusel Vernon.
Yeah, I boxed there.
You see that? He was a great boxer. You see how it's coming together?
That was my trainer, like a mentor to me.
You see that? All right.
Yeah. There's you connecting all the dots, bro.
What they say? Romans 8:28 says, for we know that all things work together
you connect
for the good. So we would go over there and he would, let us rehearse over there with his instruments because we didn't have anything to pay him back. At the dances, we would play a couple sets for him.
Yes.
And eventually he allowed us to take the instruments out, and then we started to have our own little playing for parties, weddings, graduations and stuff, until we got a little bigger. We started playing for the clubs, the nightclubs and stuff. And then it all culminated at the Battle of the Bands at Memorial Park one year, that we played for the Battle of the Bands, Los Ecos, and we came in second. A band from the Ohio district, Los Atlanticos, won first prize. We came to a draw. It was a tie, and the judges sent us back and said, you got to go back and play another song. Well, they went back and played the same Laura's team, the same waltz. And in that time, waltz in Belize was a thing. Big thing. But being the youngsters and the more aggressive, we went back and played a song by the name of Love is Blue. We had just came out with different, beautiful arrangements, introduction, and we did all that, but they wasn't ready for that yet.
I guess that's when the strong kid with jazz and we're not ready for it.
Not ready for that, but that's all right. I love all my people. I love everybody, and so we came second. But we were so popular that we were booked out the whole country. And I was 17, 18, and running the band at that time, doing all the business and everything. And but it was from that point, that night that we played at the Battle of the Bands, that Pete saw us. He was playing for Glenn Boot and Glenn Boot and the Telegrams. And remember the great Lem. Magnet Hands. Lem was our mediator. Lem came to me the next day and said, boy, Charo, I said, I talked to Pete, and Pete wanted to come over and play with you guys. He saw a lot of potentials. And he wanted to be with us, and right away I jumped to it. And maybe I was too far, because I should have talked it over with but being the band leader, I said, I made the decision. I said, I tell him, come on over. Because I knew right away we would go to another level. He's going to take us to another level. And that's where our relationship started with Pete. And a lot of the guys in the band, they didn't like it, so they quit. They started quitting. They said, well, we're going to quit. We don't like him. And so we just started replacing them, because I already had contracts out throughout all the country. And that's where Pete came into my life. And he taught me, and he, it just showed me a whole different world as regards to music. And we all love them. I love them very much. We miss them right up to this day. We miss them, and so that's where the relationship.
I'm so glad you said that, Ramirez, because like Majelli that sat where you sat and talk highly about Pete as much as he talked about Bill, and he never separated the two. And you have been the other person that has come here and have raised Pete up on the pedestal that he belonged. A musician like yourself who knew the man and knew the caliber of music that the man was playing.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm so great and honored for that. I'm so honored, appreciate that you said that, man. And we want to touch on Bill Belize, because the story I wrote, right? What was so made me laugh was when Chauncey Smith said, this man was like a hippie, the man used to walk around barefoot and play barefoot sometimes. You remember the man?
Bill was in his own world.
Bill
was in his own world, but you know what? He never harmed anybody. He loved everybody.
Yes, man.
All he wanted to do was to be happy and play his music.
Yes, man.
And so the time was more spent with Pete, because Bill was a mover.
He's a mover.
He didn't stay one place too long.
He was on the move.
So I had an opportunity to play a few sets with him and a few gigs with him. But Pete, we were together every day. We saw each other every day. We rehearsed every day. We played for I think we played for Glenn Boot. We played one time the Belizean said, I think when they started the professionals. So Jesus and Manuel and all of the brothers, they went over to the professionals. So Pops Acosta, the band leader of Belizean, was left without musicians. So all of us went in and we picked him up and played with him for a while. And then we played for Glenn. And we had a lot of jam sessions. One of the things that I'm so sorry today that we never had a recording of the jam sessions we had down at Johnny's down at Yarborough. That was the headquarters.
Check it out.
And we would have the live jam sessions.
Place named Johnny's.
Johnny's Club down there in Yarborough. That's where the Messengers was formed. Right there.
Wow.
And so that's where we
history there for you, Belize.
That's where we would end up playing there for hours live. Nowhere, just whatever came from your heart.
Improvise.
And you know, the sad part is that we never had a recording of what we did there.
Yes.
I think those were his best moments, Pete's best moments,
It's
because he was able to express himself.
Yeah. You know, Ramirez, I saw the great Pete matches as my cousin. I used to see him play. But in 1980, when Michael Hyde, a friend of mine, we went to when Dickie Strong came into town, we walked up in this little place there on South Street at Collie Coffin's, where Dickie Strong's relative was. And he had his studio there. And who was in there with him? Pete Matthews. The great Pete Matthews. I think Bill Bilal had already passed away. This is 1980. This is before Pete got killed in 1981.
In 81.
You said Bill Bilal had a band that he played with in Mexico. What was the name of that band?
I think the name of the band was Lost There.
Looked like he was traveling a lot and playing with a lot of the great bands in Mexico at the time.
I think
He was a man that was exploring like different, you know, he didn't just stay within the
That's what I say. He never said it once.
Yeah.
He was a mover.
He was a mover.
He was a mover. But I had a chance to be with him for a while, and as a matter of fact, he used to work at the bar with us with funds at our bar. We tried to help him when he was over there working with us with my dad and funds for a while, and even in the later years when he really got sick, and I was already over here in the States. Funds told me that he would come to the Ambassador on Hyde's Lane where he had his the business and blow sometimes, bring his horn over there and play. But those were great. Great musicians.
And
we say they were before their time.
They were before their time.
And sometimes we don't know what we have. We don't appreciate what we have. As the old saying, say you don't miss the water till the well is dry, and they're gone. But I'm happy that I was privileged to know them and to be a part of their lives even for a short while.
And that you're alive today, Richard Ramirez, to tell that story about those dynamic, legendary Belizean musicians like Pete Matthews and Bill Bilal.
Yes, sir.
You know that you personally knew them and played music with them, and that came into your life. But I want to go back into the horse racing again, because the horse Sir Jude was a very outstanding racehorse.
Yes.
Kenny Stuart talked about the fact that he would come in the mile from behind, and someone would ride that horse from behind and come in and win a race, right? You knew about a lot of the miles. You talk about the race that Misstate really had. Was it a mile? But the mile, I remember the mile was like the last race in all the horse race. They always put the mile last, right? And it was a long race in that the horse, you had to have stamina on that horse. What went into actually making a horse like Sir Judah?
It was owned by the late Georgie August.
Georgie August,
right? He was one of our great owners in racing.
Yes.
And that's what I left out, the owners in Belize, because I gave you Orange Walk and the Cayo District. But in Belize, you had owners like Georgie August. You had the Cantons again. You had the Lightburns. Then don't forget about the Cattousas. Albert, who was a minister. Albert
Cattouse.
And then his son, his son, Polly and Dwight.
I see. Terrorist about these guys.
Then his brother Harold. And out of Harold came Ray. Ray and all his sons. I mean, these are people that have supported racing. Then you had out of Banana Bank, you had a lady by the name of Pat Shaw. When she came from Banana Bank, she brought a trailer with about 5-6 horses at one time. These are the people that supported racing. And in Belize, I can't name everybody. I'm going to forget somebody.
Yes, indeed. But you did give us the most of them. The whole you gave us a very good history here today.
He had the dentist, Belize Pakeman. Who I rode for him. I rode a horse that he owned, Sir Christopher. Yeah, Sir Christopher came out from the Canton breeding sire from Jamaica by the name of Christopher Robin. Yeah. So that's the new when we open up the National Stadium after the hurricane. These are the horses that came on the scene then. And I won the first Derby at the National Stadium on a horse for the late Eduardo Juan from Kyle by the name of Christopher Robin.
Wow, That's history for you right
I
there.
won Derby. Then after Christopher Robin from that same group, the next meet I won 2 races with Sir Christopher for Pateman. Christopher had never won.
Yeah.
And everybody else had had a chance with her. And that day, he was trained by the late great Johnny Swift. Let's not forget Mr. Swift.
Johnny Swift.
Johnny Swift, one of the greatest Belizean trainers.
Check it out.
He was not only a trainer, but he was a shoer. He was one of the only men to know to shoe horses. So when you wanted your horse's shoe, you had to go to Mr. Johnny's house to get your horse's shoe.
To shoe the horses.
But he told me at the track, he said, Rich, he said, I got a nice colt I want you to ride today for Dr. Pakeman. He was a dentist.
Yes, yes.
Man, I won 2 races the same day on Sir Christopher.
Wow.
A 6 furlong and a half mile. We ran 2 races.
Wow.
That Dr. Pakeman was so happy he didn't give me a chance to get off the horse. He dragged me off the horse and carried me all over the paddock. And that, it didn't finish there. He was a dentist.
Yeah.
The following week we were in his chair getting some gold in our teeth. I got gold and my valet, which was the famous Beryl, you know, Beryl.
Yeah,
Alfred Taylor, the face Beryl. Everybody know Beryl in Belize.
Yeah,
he died a few years ago, but one of the legends of Belize that run horses.
Very much.
And then after Sir Christopher, I rode a mare for Santiago Castillo. That's Santi's father, if you're listening, Santi.
Yes, indeed.
Lady Ralphie had never won. He was trained by a Jamaican, Mr. Harris from Jamaica. And the exercise rider was one of the legend jockeys that I didn't tell you about. His name was Jerome Lennon, but we knew him as Common Pin.
Common Pin.
Common Pin. Jerome Lennon.
Jerome Lennon.
Jerome, and that morning I was supposed to ride Sir Christopher, but he pulled up lame.
Yeah.
So Mr. Castillo, Epish Castillo, not Santiago, Epish. If you're listening, Tony, this is for you, your dad.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah.
He came to my house on Daly Street, 54 Daly Street, and he says, Rich, he says, we want you to ride today. We want you to ride Ralphie today. Please ride. I said, well, you have to ask the old man, my dad, you know.
Yeah.
And my dad was in the bathroom at that time.
Yeah.
I said, and I remember he went around because he had the door locked. I said, you could go around the back and go in. And he went into the bathroom where my dad was and asked him and said, can your son ride Ralphie today? And he said, well, if he wants, it's up to him. And I said, sure, because I didn't have a mount.
Yeah.
And I rode, and we won that day. That was the first race that she won. We won for Santiago Castillo on the National Stadium track, and made that man happy. So happy. He took me down to the store on the Monday. He said, "Come to the store." He said, "Whatever you want, you could have it."
Yeah.
And then after Ralphie, then came Baby Karen for the late Clarence Brown from Orange Walk, a beautiful chestnut filly. I won many races with her, and it was a marvelous time.
Yeah,
you know?
you won a lot of races with Ramirez in terms of the great Charo mounting these fillies and these other great horses, and then later on you never did stop there, but you went ahead and you trained horses. Yeah, you continue in the sport and gave back, right?
That's what it's all about.
And you know, Ramirez, that was so good because, like you said, it was not a monetary thing. You all were not making no money.
None whatsoever.
Right? It was just the love of the sport.
That's the love.
And you all built a beautiful Belizean horse racing entertainment industry where people used to come and enjoy that.
Yes, sir.
You know, and listen to it at Bernardo Gay. You talk about a guy before Bernardo Gay that used to announce the racing.
Yeah, no, so his name was Brown. I can't remember his first name, but
Yeah.
he was live. He came to us on the radio, and he would give you stride for stride on the track. He was famous.
Yeah.
Then after him came Bernard,
Yeah.
and let's not forget Bernard's brother, John.
Okay.
John O'Gay, which was
John
one of
O'Gay.
the great owners too. John O'Gay was a great lover.
They were into horse racing.
Very,
the
very
O'Gay
much.
family.
The O'Gay family. The O'Gay
Yes.
family. They had a little fella by the name of Tender Spot. They won a lot of races.
Tender Spot.
Tender Spot.
Yes.
That same
Yes, I remember
Goldberg
that
summer
name.
train there.
I
Summer
remember that
train.
name.
Tender Spot. And then Don Pancha from the Orange Walk. They had Don Pancha too.
Yes.
So John was instrumental in racing too.
Yeah.
John and so we don't want to forget anyone. We want to give everybody the flowers, you know, that they had something to do.
Very much. Goldburn was an awesome. His name Stammer. That was my favorite jockey.
Oh yeah.
You know.
I was the first in the 60s. In the 60s, I was the first rider in the country to ever ride fully gear with a helmet
Wow.
and everything. My brother Funset went to Hialeah in Florida,
Yeah.
and he brought me back my you know, the helmet,
The
and the goggles and
everything,
everything.
the boots and the whole works, right?
Kangaroo skin boots.
Yes,
And so I was the first to ride with that, and then after I got through, I handed it down to Stammer. I gave him all my gear.
Stammer inherited
He inherited everything that I had when I got to him.
You worked with him a lot.
Yeah, we were very close, very close. We came over here together.
Yeah.
So, and now, as I said, to give him back, you know, Finley and Ashley James and Q. You know, I don't want to take any credit, but I had a little something to do with all of them, you know.
Yes, man.
You know, because it's all about sharing, you know.
Ramirez, in a way, you were the Charro, the great Charro, Belizeans. This was an idol for a lot of the jockeys that was coming up. This was the man that a lot of the jockeys, and I know if Ashley James and Philip Bishop are watching this, they know that they may have patterned a lot of their style watching this man ride, watching this jockey here did it. And you don't want to say it, Richard Ramirez, because of the humility, but the period you came out of, and what everybody is saying, like, yeah, you got to talk to that man there. You know, we know a lot of them, a lot of the great Belizean jockeys of the time, they were watching the great Charro ride. You may not say, they may not admit that, well, we learned something from him, but they watch you ride, you know. and with that, we want to really say we could go on here, on and on with Richard Ramirez, in terms of bringing to us that great historical period of Belizean horse racing from the 1960s to the 1970s. And this is the man here. We hope that many of us have recorded those names, have documented the names that he have called here today, the great horse owners, that those people who made that possible from the 1960s. He mentioned their names, the jockeys. He gave great justice to that today in terms of naming those jockeys that was in his time, right? And those before his time and after his time. And we really appreciate that you were able to come in here, my brother. We want to sort of leave you with the final word, Richard Ramirez, the great Charro, that in terms of the behalf of the legends of horse racing, the period that you came up in, and on behalf of all the legends too of music that you came up in, my brother, I have the last word in terms of what you would like to share with the audience about those legendary Belizeans in both of those fields, you know.
Well, thank you so much, my brother. Some who are still around, you know, it's just a wonderful time in my life. It has been an enrichment in my life that I would never forget. I will carry it to the grave with me. The times that I had, and one thing I've learned, that you don't forget where you come from, and don't forget the people that help you along the way. And so my life has been enriched. I've had a wonderful, it's been a good journey, a beautiful journey.
Yeah, give us a little scope about who you are today, Ramirez.
Today,
pastor of a church.
The Lord had other plans for me. You know, you could make your plans. I am proud to say I'm the pastor of Emmanuel House of Worship, right in South Central LA, 11166 South Main Street, where we preach the good news of Jesus Christ and we reach out to those who are lost. And so that's what I do. That's my life now. And just to share the goodness of the Lord with whoever I come in contact with. But it's just been a beautiful ride.
Yes, man.
And we don't know what the Lord has in store for us, but you know, God bless everyone. Shout out to my brother Funtz in Belize. You know, we're not, you know, have a little health problems that he's dealing with, but I know everything is going to be all right.
Praise God for him.
And I know that he's going to be happy to know that we finally came into the studio.
Yes, man. Funtz, the man is here, man, and we hope that you are better and everything like that. That this legend here of your brother sits in here today, and today Richard Ramirez is a blessed brother with God in his life. And we're not ashamed to say that, Richard Ramirez.
Not ashamed.
That you're a man that has God in his life, and that it's a motivation and empowerment for young Belizeans who are watching this. We hope that today, those of you who are jockeys in Belize, who are now, boom is the spot, Richard Ramirez, where everybody go. And Boxing Day, you know, 26th of December, watch horse racing, right? The National Stadium is no more. It's the Marion Jones Sporting Complex now. But how much we miss that great period, man, where it was a big thing in Belize. But with that, my brother, we don't want to bore you anymore. And I want to thank you, Richard Ramirez, for coming in here, man. Because I could go on with you for on and on and on. Because Belizeans, it is a pleasure that this man is alive today. God in his life, alive today, that can come and tell the story. Narratives are documented here today. Richard Ramirez, better known as Charro, the legendary Belizean jockey and musician from the 1960s and 70s Belizean horse racing and musical explosion. This is Belizean Legends, and I'm Bilal Morris.